Welcome back to the FIA Motorsport Games presented by Fanatec. My name is DJ Clark, joined up here in the commentary booth by Jesse Lee. And Jesse, that first race for the quarterfinals certainly set the tone for us here, and we've got two more to go on the trot.
Yeah, DJ, you're not kidding. And can I just say, I probably wouldn't have called what we saw in race number one. We had the entire top 10 racing each other, even though they were already safe. It might have cost a few drivers at the back an opportunity to race tomorrow. We'll see what happens with the LCQs. But I think because that was the tone setter, you're going to get more of the same. 38 more drivers just watch that race, and they will be going at the same pace, surely. Another stacked field of 19 cars on the grid here for quarterfinal number 2, and your guess is as good as mine as where they're all going to finish. DJ, we had cars come from the back to transfer in. We had cars from the front go to the back and not transfer in race number 1.
We certainly did, and we'll have to see if that plays itself out here for this second quarterfinal here today. Again, the same format as last time. The top 10 drivers will automatically transfer on in, and there you can see that starting grid. Chris Harteveld followed by Martin Kettelsik there up at the front of the grid. Philip Nikita and Perrick, all drivers up the front, again choosing those McLarens, but it's got to be said, the Ferrari and the Lamborghini looking particularly quick in a straight line around this Paul Ricard circuit. Jesse, this is going to be a little bit interesting to see how everything plays itself out.
Well, the last time we had an outlier in the manufacturer grouping, it turned out to be an absolutely genius move. Will it be the same thing here today? It's an absolute armada of McLarens up in front of this grid right now, but you also have the AMG in 6th place, and then as you get further back, of course, BMWs, Porsches, Audis, Lamborghini, the lot, basically. We don't know what we're going to get here. Of course, the conventional wisdom was to go with the McLaren. Not everybody elected to do that, and I think that basically, as we touched on earlier, comes down to preference.
Yeah, I think it does as well, just how that car exactly is going to handle around this circuit. But again, same format here in this second race. It'll be an hour-long race with a mandatory pit stop taking place between 35 and 25 minutes left to go in the race. You will have to hop on into pit lane at some point, as there we take a live look at Chris Harteveld there, the Dutch driver leading the field around here down the long Mistral Straight. We saw plenty of drafting taking place over the course of the running there, and I've got to think we're going to be in for a lot of the same, a lot of very, very close running down into turns 8 and 9. That seemed to be the primary flashpoint, Jesse, and I've got to think that's going to be a little bit where we see more of it here today. But right now, I think for these drivers, they're going to be trying to keep their eyes forward right now, just getting those tires up to temperature. And as we talked about here, looks like we've had a little bit of a technical difficulty there, so we're going to have to restart everything as it goes, Jesse, and just building the anticipation a little bit more.
That doesn't do anything for the heart rate, does it, DJ? That it may calm you down initially, but it's just more nerve-wracking. You got to go through all of your processes again, and that does include your mental process to get your head in the right space. You've got to go through that. It's different from time to time. It's the same way in other sports. Whenever you slow down the game to gain a mental advantage, it works the same way here. It changes your everything about the way you prepare mentally. It's incredible how much that might play in, but all these drivers, in my opinion, more than up to the task.
Yeah, they certainly are, and all of these drivers very, very good at being able to get that adrenaline out of the system, which is the key to having a good run around this circuit. But as we said, looking back at this starting grid, this is one of the more stacked fields that we've had. I particularly have my eye on Philippa Bokita, the Australian driver, starting off in P3. We've seen Philippa do some pretty incredible things behind the wheel of a car. Have to bring their way forward on that.
I think that's absolutely true, and there's so many drivers like Chris Harteveld out in front of this field. I'm not surprised. Year in and year out, DJ, you and I get to see at the sidelines what that particular driver from the Netherlands is capable of. No surprise that they are on pole position here for quarterfinal number 2.
Yes, as they are sitting on the grid here for about a 2-minute countdown as we get the rest of the drivers locked in and ready to go. Jesse, here, let's talk a little bit about that first qualifying race. We saw for quarterfinal race, rather. We saw a lot of, well, as our colleague Calvin Fish would call it, argy-bargy between the drivers, particularly coming down in that third sector of the track. Drivers getting their elbows out a little bit. Do you think we can expect more of the same here?
Yeah, absolutely. You're going to see that. I think also, too, it was a very nice procession to start race number one. I worry that we might not get the same thing. A lot of McLarens up front. That means they're going to be even. That means they're going to be side by side.
Yeah, I certainly think they will as well. And, something we talked about that's a little bit more difficult when you are running in the same make of car. It gets progressively more difficult to overtake. If you're running, as we saw, McLaren to Lamborghini, you're going to be able to take advantage of some of the places on the circuit where that Lamborghini may struggle a little bit. But as of right now, all the McLarens at the front of the field, the only real difference in those cars are the drivers behind the wheel of the car. You're not going to be able to take advantage of any problems or any down areas necessarily, any areas that the car may struggle with. You're just going to have to do it on raw pace.
We saw something there that I haven't seen. We're on the grid here, and we're seeing some of the cars use the flash button, and I wonder if maybe that's just the mapping on the wheel that's causing that. But one way or another, we didn't see a lot of flashing in race number one.
No, we really didn't, and I think that's a little bit of a testament to some of the drivers here not wanting to necessarily get involved in some of those mental games. We'll have to see if that does play out, because that can be used as a distraction factor as they go. But here we go, working our way through right now. There's a live look at the arena, an absolutely fantastic view.
Well, the fans in the stands here, absolutely ecstatic as well. Can't wait to see this race get underway. A penny for all the people watching there. I don't know how to call this simply because you don't know what you're going to get with so many fantastic drivers on the grid. Again, once in a lifetime for a lot of these drivers, once a year for us here in the booth, and it never isn't interesting.
As there we get the official roll out there. Chris Harteveld leading the field around once again. We will have one pace lap before we let this field of 19 drivers loose for an hour-long race around this Paul Ricard circuit. As there you can see that fleet of McLarens up at the front. Konstantin Scharf, the first driver not in a McLaren. He is in one of those Mercedes AMG GT3s representing Germany. Probably a little bit of, let's call it a local market bias there for Konstantin, but we'll have to see. That AMG looked pretty good up at the front of the field.
Yeah, it sure did. Keep in mind, did some damage in an AMG there in race one with one of those. Got to be feeling good about your chances, knowing that somebody before you was able to have success. And of course, we're all basically, all these drivers on a similar level to each other. You got to assume, hey, if they can do it, so can I, and that is absolutely the right attitude. Nothing changes here, race one versus race two. The top 10 will qualify into the next round tomorrow, and anyone outside the top 10 will be put in a last chance qualifier in LCQ a little later on this evening. And I don't know who said it. I'm sure it's a lot of people, DJ, but when the task is at hand, it's better to win.
Yeah, it certainly is, and Harteveld here obviously putting himself into that prime position here at this point. We'll have to see if he's able to capitalize there. Plenty of good names up and down through the field, though. I'm going to be a little bit interested to see what Rubilar and Limsiken they are able to do in 10th and 11th position. Those Porsches, we saw a couple of Porsches in the field. They look to fall off a little bit, and one of the things we've heard here a little bit is that the Porsches do struggle a little bit from tire wear, so I wonder if that could have been the problem that saw a couple of those drivers in the first quarterfinal falling their way back down through the order.
Also keep in mind, while we're talking about the Porsche as well, that car, the dynamics of that car change mightily depending on how much fuel load it has on it. It's a very noticeable change from the driver compartment as well. It probably has the most change from a full tank to an empty tank than any other car in the field. And over the years, we've seen a lot of drivers in ACC combat that with some very clever engineering of the setup. Be curious to see what they've done here. Maybe learn a lesson from race number 1 as well. So we're here again at the end of the pace lap, getting ready to go green for quarterfinal number 2. We've got that mandatory stop to take in the middle part of the race, and we'll see exactly who comes in and where they come in. Again, we saw in race number 1, the late pit stop absolutely worked. Will we see it tried here in race number 2?
Well, I've got to think that a lot of these drivers were probably paying attention over the course of that first race to see what some of the strategies were and if that could play themselves out for each other. Right now, here comes Hartveld bringing the car down through the final couple of corners. Here they come as we get ready to go racing in quarterfinal race number 2, live from the virtual Paul Ricard circuit. This is going to be fast. This is going to be electric here, and I am very, very excited to see what we have in store. Working their way through turn 12 right now. There you can see everybody bringing the cars to green. Well, obviously, here we go on the flag command. The leader does not have control of the field as there comes Hartveld out of the final corner. Ready to get racing here as all eyes go to the flag stand, and we await the drop of the green flag at Circuit Paul Ricard, waiting for it here as we continue to keep our eyes focused. And there goes the green. We are racing here at Paul Ricard. It looks like a pretty clean getaway from all of the front. That looks to be Scharf trying to make a move up the inside there in the middle. He may get a little bit boxed out by Bakita and Perrick in the middle of the field. The field dives their way now down into turn 1. A little bit of 3 wide there farther back in the field, but I think everybody is able to get through nice and cleanly, and that is going to be Hartveld already starting to get a lead, but we've got some contact further back in the field.
They sure were, DJ. 4 wide down into turn 1, and when the pinch point happened during the S-curve, it did not work out. A couple of cars went off, the 2 most inside cars. Huge contact there as one car all the way into the back of the field got spun around, further insult to injury there. The rest of the cars able to get going. Absolutely chaos there on the start. Everybody fighting for position. We had a procession-like start for the first one. This one absolutely 4 wide. They were getting it.
They were indeed as we work our way onto the Mistral Straight here for the first time in this hour-long race. Watching Matthias Kuhn right now. Ooh, as that was a car moving their way out to the inside. Here's Thomas Schmidt, the Swiss driver, going a little bit side by side with Linskanen, the American driver, down into the Mistral Straight. This is going to get a little bit close together. BMW versus Porsche as they dive down into the corner. A little bit of how you doing there as the American's going to try to work his way around the outside here, and this is the same kind of overtake that we saw last time. I think this is going to be advantage here to Schmidt in the BMW, and it looks like it is indeed.
Schmidt's done a great job there. Of course, the American driver up 1 spot from where they started in this race, had a nice start themselves, so they're in the final transfer spot, and that is dangerous days for the American, as of course they're all still very much nose to tail early on, and that's the Israeli driver right behind him. But no, still looking forward here is the American Tyler, looking to make a move. Switzerland now looking in front of himself, looking at the Chilean driver of Nicolas Roubliard. And wow, just what a nice lap there after it calmed down after the first couple of corners.
Yeah, everything getting back to normal here, and unlike that first race, it looks like we may have a little bit of a battle up for the lead. Is that battle, though, between Schmidt and Linskanen not done anywhere near, as it looks like the BMW driver there, Schmidt's going to be able to hold ahead for now. Linskanen trying to throw a little bit of a move down into turn 1, but not able to play it out. We take a live look there at Tyler right now, focusing in that Porsche. Again, having to worry about tire wear, having to worry about fuel load in that Porsche. Very, very tricky there for him, but he's going to be able to bring himself here. It looks like a car may have run a little bit wide there. One of the bollards there coming off to the side as now they work their way through turn 6 and now through turn 7, getting onto the loud pedal here on the Mistral Straight. It's going to be a little bit of a draft train here for Linskanen as he tries to be able to cane onto the back of Schmidt, but it looks like that Porsche may have a little bit more speed in a straight line.
Well, bad news for Koketso, the South African driver, a drive-through penalty for causing a collision on the start part of that 4 wide into turns 1 and 2, and that has cost them dearly here.
Yes, it has. Looks like Tyler Limskinen is going to back off. They are going down into the right-hander. Ooh, little bit of close running up in front. I believe that was Scharf and Rubelar getting into it, and now that's going to be Schmidt trying to get involved as well. It looks like there we've got a little bit of 3 wide coming down through turn 9, as that's going to be Limskinen trying to take a little bit of an advantage. Thomas Schmidt shuffled down one position, but he's going to fight back down in through turn 10. They work their way into the slow braking, and a great defensive line there for the BMW driver representing Switzerland here as he continues to work his way now through turn 11, lining up in here to turn 12. The Porsche number 54 trying to find a little bit of an opportunity, but it is not presenting itself whatsoever, and Schmidt again going to be able to hold off here into P9.
This track has such a fantastic profile. If you would have shown anybody that, they would have thought that Limskinen was all the way through on that particular maneuver, but Schmidt knew that the track was in their favor, was able to get back around them. Such an excellent Sector 3 around here, and as long as you drive a nice race in a perfect line most of the way around Sector 3, even if you're beat, you're not actually beat. You've just got to hold steady and run a nice line, and that's exactly what Schmidt did, and it preserved 9th place, and then has put Tyler back into the last transfer spot, but they are absolutely not safe. Gribov is right there threatening for that spot.
Yes, he certainly is, but we're focused here as this is Nicholas Rubelar a little bit farther down in the field. Great run there off the corner, trying to make a little bit of a move on the number 22 of Perik up ahead of him, and that is not a good day here for Jas Perik. That is the Estonian driver down a couple of positions from his starting spot as we watch Rubelar here on board trying to move to the outside of turn 8 as they work their way down the Mistral Straight. One of the few Porsches here up at the front of the field. Harteveld trying to hold off a little bit of an attack here from Kadlasic as they work their way through, and there comes Rubelar sweeping around the outside, trying to getting back in between the bollards, and that's going to be favor here to Perik as they now dive in through turn 9. Looking very, very hungry as behind is Scharf as he's trying to poke his nose ahead. I believe Limskinen has been able to move his way up past Schmidt here for the moment, but as we've seen that battle play itself out.
Oh, contact! Big contact there. Nicholas Rubelar has contact there, and that Wilson, Perik, and the like a little bit sideways. Several cars have gotten through it this time. This has absolutely changed the entire complexion of this race. Several cars are through. Israel right behind them at the time, but a very, very unfortunate moment for the Chilean driver now.
Yes, it is, as we wait for the drivers to cross over the start-finish line here to give us an update on exactly where everyone is, and it looks like Scharf is going to be up ahead of that battle in P6, followed by Schmidt, Limskinen, Rubelar, and Gribov. They're your top 10 drivers. Perik shuffled all the way down to 11th, courtesy of that contact. Going to be interesting to see if Race Control has anything to say about that. We've already seen one penalty already being administered there, and already you can see a little bit of damage on the front end of that Porsche for Nicholas Rubelar, so that is not the way you want to start off this race, especially considering we still have about 53 minutes left to go, Jesse.
Yeah, and do bear in mind, Rubelar did not mean to do that. That was completely accidental, did not realize where the other car's braking point was going to be, was trying to take an advantage into the corner, but unfortunately got more of an advantage than he expected with the contact. And again, Rubelar's not like that. I think we all know him and what he's capable of behind the wheel. Just an accident, but unfortunately, I think you're absolutely right. I think the stewards are going to have a look at that. They're probably not going to be too pleased with what they found. I'll tell you who is pleased. Schmidt is pleased. Was 9th place, battling it out, trying to stay in 9th from 10th, of course, but now finds himself all the way up in 7th place. Meanwhile, Perik on the way back up. Jas Perik, the Estonian driver, the one that got the brunt of that contact, is continuing to try and make some ground back up. The Israeli driver down the inside here, side by side, and will they fall back in line? Yes. Oh, it's a crossover move here for Perik.
Oh, that was pretty stuff for Perik, but he's going to have to go the long way around there of turn 10, and that's not going to play itself out. Looking for another crossover there on the exit of turn 10, and again, that's going to play, and immediately we are seeing a drive-through penalty there issued to Nicholas Rubelar in the number 77. I think we all know what that was for, Jesse.
Yeah, I don't need a slip of paper to tell me that, DJ. I think that's pretty obvious. I felt like we saw that coming, and it's rather unfortunate for Nicholas, who is an incredibly quick driver. A drive-through penalty is rather unfortunate, and it'd be hard to see them come back from that here today. But there it is, drive-through for that was a previous penalty, in fact, for P-Lane earlier on. But also, again, kind of obvious with the 77 there. They continue to fight this out for what is 10th place. Perrick seems to have gotten the best of that. There it is, confirmed from race control. Drive-through penalty for car 77 for avoidable contact incident there. Perrick, though, still in this, even with the spin. No penalty for them, obviously. They were the victim. You got to shake it off now, don't you, DJ?
Yeah, you certainly do. As we look out the back end of that McLaren, trying to gain a little bit here down the Mistral Straight. You can see Chanturia there also trying to close in behind the Georgian driver, maybe seeing if he can get a little bit of a run here on Gribov. But Gribov looking nice in the draft, going to suck up behind that run as we check back in on the battle for the lead. Kadlasek here trying to close in on the back of Harteveld. As here comes the move from the Audi. Gribov trying to go around the outside of turn 8. Looks like that move's already been done and dusted by the time they get into the corner. As there they jump onto the binders. They are very briefly flicking their way through scene as now they bring their way down into the long right-hander. Are we going to see a little bit of a pass here from Jussi Perrick going down to the inside of turn 9, trying to hold that out. You can see the look of concentration, almost contact there with Gribov as they continue to fight this out through turn 12.
This is excellent racing here. Complete slide there by the number 5 car. And that's just what you have to do. Sometimes you've got to get your elbows out. These two absolutely getting their elbows out. UC now trying to get that spot back. Looked good value for my vantage point for 10th place, but no, not so fast. Gribov has a very fast Audi here and has taken that spot back, but maybe left the inside open here. Will they have the horsepower? Yes, they will. The Israeli driver back out in front, shuts the door into turn 1. Will we see a move from Perrick into 1? Looking, thinking, not doing it this time.
And I love that onboard shot there with Jussi Perrick. You could see a little bit of a shake of the head. He tried for the crossover coming out of turn 13, but it just didn't play itself out. He's going to have to try a different day here on a different corner as he continues to work his way around. This now for P8, having with the pit stop already been served there for the drive-through penalty. Here is Thomas Schmid up at the front of that little pack. He's trying to close down on Scharf there, the German driver in the Mercedes right now. The battle right now for these three for 6th place between Scharf, Schmid, and Linskinen as they run down the long Mistral Straight.
Man, this is the absolute opposite of what we had for race number 1. Harteveld and Kadlecik still up in front of this field. They're still battling it out. Absolutely nothing in between them. Filippo Bokita has a semi-comfortable P3 for the time being. Coming in 4th place has a similar situation all their own, but behind all of them, it is all kicking off as Schmid, who, by the way, was passed by the American driver a few laps ago, has since reestablished dominance here as the driver from Switzerland now focuses on the car in front of them.
Yeah, trying to close in on Scharf here as they work their way through turn 12 down into this left-hander. We've seen a lot of crossovers here at this point in the race, but about 12 minutes down and still 48 minutes left to go. We take a look back at the replay here. This is some of the contact that we saw. DJ. Yeah, this was absolute insanity here. Farther back in the field, a lot of drivers trying to work their way up forward. As there we see that looks to be a little bit of the contact there that may have caused the go around, and indeed it was. There you can see the Mercedes and the McLaren coming together.
Yeah, just rather unfortunate too. You know what they say, 2 into 1 doesn't go. Well, 4 into 2 definitely doesn't go, and that's about all you can fit around that particular corner. They obviously knew that they were 4 wide. They tried to respect each other, but the tolerance is way too small. Contact there.
Yeah, contact there between the two as we focus back on Thomas Schmidt, the Swiss driver, trying to see what he is able to do on the German driver of Scharf up ahead of him. Working their way now down through the slow turn 5 before you get back onto the power here through turn 6 and then the flick through turn 7. Looks like a little bit of a good run there from Linskinen, but he's almost in danger there of crossing over track limits. Got to be careful about that. We saw a couple of drive-through penalties, a couple of stop-and-goes issued in the previous race, but look at this, Jesse. We could see a little bit of a close running here up at the front of the field. Kadlasek trying to be able to close in on the back of Harteveld. I wonder if this is going to be a situation like we saw a little bit earlier. 3 wide, though, coming down into turn 8.
Well, you didn't think it was over, did you? Just because we cut away? Absolutely not. 3 wide down into Scene corner. Somebody's going to have to give. It's going to be the 19. There's still 2 by 2. The German driver versus the American driver for a position. Scharf here trying to hold steady down the inside. Can the Porsche go around the outside? And what does Thomas Schmid do? Schmid's going to have to follow the leader here shortly as they go down into the S section. That's very fantastically done. A little bit wide from the German driver, I think. A little bit too wide. The Porsche going through. What can Switzerland do? No, he doesn't. The Porsche doesn't have the legs. The AMG ranking supreme right there and just about saved themselves a spot with it.
Konstantin Scharf just absolutely calm, cool, and collected here, being able to keep himself ahead. A little bit of a wiggle there from Schmid in the BMW behind. I think that's going to cost him a chance to be able to get an attack here down the start-finish straightaway. Scharf rather leading over Limskinen. Now Limskinen tries to poke to the inside, decides against it, and pulls back into line going down into turn 1. He's going to get on the binders a little bit early, and that was Schmid off!
Schmid's had a huge off right there. What on earth has happened to that driver? I can only try and figure out what they've done that has caused that a huge moment, or at least it looked like a huge moment from our vantage point, as they all do continue around. A little bit of space afforded them on this particular occasion, a brief reprieve, if you will, from the 3 wide of a lap ago. I dare say they won't manage that this time, to the relief of Scharf and all of them, quite frankly.
Yes, indeed, but there you can see Tyler Limskinen trying to be able to break the draft a little bit from behind. We jump back up to the front of the field. This is Chris Hartveld and Kadlasik really pulling away here from Filippo Bokita. And I wonder if, what I was saying earlier, if this is going to be a little bit of a just kind of holding place battle like we saw for that P2 spot in the first quarterfinal here today. If that's going to be a little bit of what we see out of these two, if they're just happy to pull away. We're going to go back and check out the replay here of exactly what happened going down into the corner there, and it just looks like missing that braking zone. That may have been a little bit of contact there, Jesse.
Oh, but that was so good that it was so very few millimeters in between those two cars, if any. That was incredibly close. We thought that car of Schmid went completely off the racetrack. They were able to save it, and in fact didn't even really, if we're honest, lose a lot of time. Meanwhile, a little bit further back in the field, this is fighting for the final transfer spot, or at least it would be if somebody else hadn't already taken that spot. Sandro, trying to get back up there, has been relieved of the top 10 spot and now finds themselves fighting the Audi here.
Yeah, this is for P11 right now. That's Jokelson down to the inside, or what will be the outside of turn 1. Chanteria trying to hold off here as they go down into the corner. It looks like the McLaren's going to be able to hold that out for now. Jokelson not really able to get that move done quite now, but look at the speed there that the Audi is able to carry coming down into turn 3. This isn't normally an area where you see some overtaking, but Jokelson certainly thinking about trying to do it and getting it done there for the moment. Sandro fighting back. What an impressive move there for the Audi, but it's not done. Chanteria trying to fight it back, able to hold down to the inside here as they come through turn 5 and 6. A very, very impressive defense from the Georgian.
Yeah, the Georgian did really great there. The Icelandic driver almost nearly had it, thought they would have had it surely, but came up just ever so short of it because the fight was prolonged for an extra turn or so. A little bit of a flash of the lights. They don't work when you're that close to him, I can assure you. He can't see them if you're right up under his wing. This is how close it is. Sandro, the Georgian driver, leading Jokelson, the Icelandic driver. He pulls out, goes the long way around Seed. Is he trying the over-under technique? He was doing, but it was covered very well by Sandro. A comfortable moment, perhaps, if only for one fleeting second, as they go right back to battle. Icelandic driver going wide here, trying to gain every bit of momentum, knowing how important this fight is.
And now going to try to go a little bit around the outside there of turn 10, but is going to be forced to fall back. But that's going to be Chanteria running a little bit wide and a little bit of front to rear contact there between the two. And this is allowed for Seeley to pull back into the mix. This is a replay, by the way, a little bit farther back in the order here. This is, I think, something that set up a little bit of this battle. That is coming down into turn 9. A little bit of side by side there between the two McLarens. That's going to be the 05 and the 12. Nice little pass there for the Estonian driver to be able to get his way up and on by, but there's the side-by-side, and there's the contact that sent them spinning.
Oh, yes, that would explain why I thought that was for 10th earlier when it was actually for 11th. A little bit of contact there has sent them into this position. So there you have it, all cleared up. And Perrick, who was the car that had that issue earlier on, of course, they're back inside the top 10 now, and maybe a little bit worse for wear with damage. But other than that, that car going fine. And of course, gapping the cars in the pack that we're watching right now for good measure.
Yeah, being able to pull ahead there and start to build a little bit of a gap. I mean, it's about 4.8 seconds here at this point. We look a little farther up in the field, the battle that seems to never die here, Thomas Schmid and Tyler Limskinen, as they continue to work their way down the Mistral Straight. It does look like Konstantin Scharf has been able to pull away there a little bit in that number 40, getting himself a little bit of breathing room to the tune of about 1.3 seconds, but Thomas Schmid all over the back of the American. Here is the battle, though, coming down. Leon Seeley trying to hold off Jokelsen. Almost contact there between the two. They're going to bring the car wide, and that's Jokelsen having to pull back a little bit as Seeley's going to be able to hold on to P12.
Leon Seeley probably a little bit frustrated here, started inside the top 10, has been cycled out of that. Now is pressure from 13th place. Not exactly how they expected their day to go. It started out a little bit better, but they've got to remain focused here. It certainly looks like they're up to the task. Thomas Schmid, by the way, the driver from Switzerland, continuing their fight with the American driver here. These two, just like we saw in race number 1, this could be an all-race battle between the two. I only worry about the Porsche's tire condition, or maybe with that car, but you don't know until we get there. Maybe they've covered it in this occasion.
We will have to wait and find out. At 40 minutes left to go in this race, and crucially, Jesse, about 5 minutes to go until that pit stop window will open up. And so that's where we're going to see some of this strategy starting to play itself out. This being one of the closer battles on track. We jump back to the 10th place position right now. Jos Perrick working his way around the Estonian driver, trying to close in on the back of the number 49 Israeli entry of Gribov. And this has the potential to be a nice little battle here.
Yeah, all credit to the Estonian driver. Perrick has had a start of a nightmare, if you will, and has had to claw their way, first of all, back into the top 10, and is now looking to continue to climb back to where they were pre-accident here. You got to get through Gribov now, but the fact that they caught them so quickly shows me that even with maybe a little bit of damage on that car for the Estonian, very fast still.
Yeah, very, very quick as Tyler Limskinen here working around, trying to hold off that attack from Schmid behind him, and it looks like it's successful for the moment. Not going to be under massive pressure coming down through turn 9, which is not something that Tyler has been able to say really over the course of this race. He has really been under constant assault from Schmid. We jump back here to a little bit that battle a little bit farther back down in the pack right now. Chanceria leading Seeley, leading Jokelsen, and crucially, this is that battle for the final transfer spot. No, excuse me, it's not. It's for P11. Perrick up ahead the road here, about 5.8 seconds ahead of these. But if anything were to happen to those drivers in front, this would become that final transfer position. Every spot crucial here, Jesse.
Yeah, we talked about that in race 1, DJ, didn't we? That 11th place is automatically in if something happens in front. And what happened in race 1? That exact scenario late into the race. So 11th place, is it a transfer spot? Absolutely not. But you're first in, you're first on the waiting list and in the queue if something were to go wrong. And if race 1 is anything to go off of, it certainly will for somebody, but you've got to run a nice race. And of course, you also have to win this fight for 11th place. And oh, by the way, you've got several people holding a ticket for that spot as well.
Yes, you do, as here we've got a battle for the lead, and here comes Kadlasic around the outside. Martin Kadlasic here, the Czech Republic driver, trying to be able to get the pass done on Chris Hardveld as they cross over the sector line into Sector 3, and it looks like there that it's going to be just enough. Moving back onto the track, almost contact with Hardveld. Heads up there from Chris Hardveld to be able to hold that at bay, but we've got a change for the lead.
Martin Kadlacik from the Czech Republic has taken the lead of the race. Our first change for the lead on the racetrack today. And what a drive it was. Martin was very patient. He studied Harteveld and he went to school and in the end was able to get it done. Did it the hard way, in my opinion, as well, but cleanly, most importantly. Chris Harteveld, we're going to have to see what they do. Do they accept that and run second here, or do they take the charge back to the Czech driver?
We'll have to see as we now focus on the battle back for P11. Jokelson able to get ahead of the rest of the field here at this point. Chanteria, the Georgian, trying to fight back a little bit. Leon Seeley looks like he's dropped a couple of positions back, a couple of seconds back rather, a couple of tenths as they now work their way through turn 10, trying to see what they are able to do here at this point. It looks like Jokelson's in a good position, but we've seen that McLaren be able to fight back, and this is one of those battles that just doesn't seem like it's going to die anytime soon. This could very well keep raging until the very end of the race.
Well, you know what it is. It's two different manufacturers here. One's good at one end of the racetrack, one's good at the other end, and they may come apart in some sectors, but they always come back together. Each driver gets to display their strength at one end of the racetrack, and really what that's done is it's made a stalemate. Whoever studies better here, whoever has the better measure of their opponent, might win this fight, and Jokelson right now from Iceland is winning that fight.
Yes, he is starting to pull away here through Sector 1, and this is the area of the track that we would anticipate the Audi being a little bit better on. So we'll have to see here if the Icelandic driver is able to keep that up down the Mistral Straight. The two McLarens behind him closing in. It does look like Seeley's been able to close that gap to Chanceria here as they now come out of turn 6, working their way onto the Mistral Straight. Good gap here for Jokelson. I think he's going to be in a good position to try to hold that at bay for now. So that looks like it's going to be okay for the Audi driver. Seeley, though, may have a little bit of a run here on Chanceria. Let's wait to see as they work their way down past the chicane that we are not running here today. 25 seconds left to go until that pit stop window opens up, and that's when some of the strategy here for some of these drivers like Seeley that have really been unable to get on by may start to come into play.
Well, I thought the Barbados driver was left for dead there in the mid part of the pack, but absolutely not. Damage on the car, no problem. Leon Seeley back into the fight here, and again, not for the transfer spot right now, but it doesn't matter. You got to get all the positions you can and help the cards fall where they may in your favor. Seeley looking up the inside, high on the curb right there. Doesn't quite have the overlap, was pinched off a little bit, has to fall back in line. Leon Seeley looking intense here, thinking about his next move and how he's going to get it done. He may have to wait an entire other lap, but let me tell you something, he learned a lot out of that one corner.
Yeah, he certainly did, and that's one of the things here is immediately pulling off down into pit lane is going to be Chanceria. Also looks like Peric is going to be taking their pit stop as well. So here we've got the pit stop starting to kick off right as the pit stop window opens.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. If you're not in a fight right now, or maybe you are in a fight, wherever it is, the early pit stop, it really doesn't do you any harm. No tire stops here today, so that's out of the question. Though I will say, we did see at least one driver in race number 1 convert the late pit stop into an excellent standing. I think some of the drivers will have taken note of that, and probably if you're way out in space, like our leader, for instance, our leaders, I should say plural, maybe you do come in very late. Maybe if you're Harteveld and the win here matters to you, despite the fact that both of those are transfer spots, maybe you do come in early to try and jump the 57 again. I don't know what all the drivers are going to do here. Rarefied air, I think, is the course of the day.
Yeah, I think it is as well as we check in on that battle for the lead with Harteveld and Kadlacik here working their way through turns 11 and 12 right now down into turn 13. Whoa, here comes Thomas Schmidt down to the inside right now, working his way around. Is there going to be a little bit of a fight back here from Linskanen? And there they come into turn 10. It's going to be advantage here to the Swiss driver as the American has put down a spot.
Schmid has pulled that move off several times on Linskanen and is absolutely doing it without what appears to be a whole lot of effort. The driver from Switzerland doing an excellent job there. It may have been put on the back foot for a few laps, but says, I still remember how to get around you.
Yeah, certainly does. I can tell you, by the way, that neither Kadlasic nor Hardeveldt did decide to come into pit lane, or as you can see on your screen, did Schmidt or Limskinen. But here, Limskinen looking very, very darty, coming down the start-finish straightaway. Not going to make the move down into turn one, but I think just trying to fill the mirrors here of Thomas Schmidt as much as possible to see if he can be able to elicit an error here out of 19.
Certainly trying to do something. You've got to do something. Now you're on the back foot. You've lost a little bit of ground. You're throwing everything at it here. Again, it's not the end-all be-all this position, but of course, if you can beat your opponent, you want to do that. But Schmidt very clearly out in front at least for this lap. This is the battle up front, riding on board the Netherlands car. Chris Hardeveldt looking at the leader of the race for the time being. And what I see, Hardeveldt, when we had his in-cockpit camera a moment ago, we were able to focus on the eyes. DJ, you know, I take a lot of impressions from what the driver is looking like, what he's going through, and he looks incredibly focused right now, but he doesn't look intense like he's going to try and make a move. He just looks like he's trying to run in the tire marks, make the best laps possible, and that might be, he's just trying to get to the pit stop here. But yeah, absolutely incredible cameras we have all the way around for this event.
Yeah, massive, massive thanks to everyone on site for giving us those cameras, and also massive thank you to Fanatec for providing all of the gear that is on site for these drivers. Neither Kadlasic nor Hardeveldt coming down into pit lane. We'll keep our eyes here on Philippa Bokita and Kuhn farther back in the field. Doesn't look like any of them are going to come on in. Everybody trying to extend this pit stop cycle a little bit as long as possible as we tick our way closer and closer to the halfway point. It does look like Akin Olagubede does have a drive-through penalty here being issued. Drive-throughs like that normally for track limits here issued by the sim, not the live race stewards, Jesse.
Yeah, of course, we saw drive-through penalties assigned by ACC early on in race number 1. We didn't have that here in race number 2, but some of the drivers probably have put themselves at a little bit of a risk, admittedly, and we'll see how that plays out throughout the duration of the race. Certainly, if you're in the top 10 at this point, you're going to have to be a little bit cautious, as we see the Lamborghini, the 43 now, has ducked down the pit lane, and that is the Ukrainian driver who has waved the flag for that, and they have decided that they will be one of the first people on pit lane. Now, pay attention to that 43 Lamborghini, where they come out in all of this. They could be up in a battle that they previously weren't in now.
Yeah, they very well could, as we focus back in on the battle for the lead right now. Hardeveldt continuing to just put pressure to the back of Kadlasic here as they work their way out of turn 9 right now. Not looking like Hardeveldt necessarily is being all that aggressive. Just studying, Jesse. That certainly seems to be what it is. We check back in on the other battle that we've been following over the course of the race. Schmidt versus Limskinen here as they work their way down through this same corner, trying to see if there's anything to be had here. I'm wondering if Tyler Limskinen is starting to think a little bit about tire wear. Maybe they've got something dialed into that number 54, but as we've seen and as we've talked about, that Porsche tends to fall off near the end of the race. He's going to have to be careful here. He does have 8 seconds over Gribov behind him, but he doesn't want to have to bite into any of that if possible.
Well, I mean, the worst part is, too, if your car falls off, and we're not saying that that is going to happen. We have no way of actually knowing if that is going to happen, but if that were to happen, we saw that in race number 1, a driver that was in 7th, 8th place ended up falling outside of the top 10, and you can't afford that. So taking a more measured approach there and just driving your race and not trying to live in the tire tracks of the car in front, not trying to beat them off of every corner, sometimes is more about survival than actually fighting somebody.
Yes, it very much is. And speaking of Gribov behind him, it looks like the Israeli driver diving down in pit lane, as well as the Icelandic driver of Jokelsen, both of them coming in, and Nicholas Rubelar, looking like we're having 3 pit stops here, just under the halfway point in quarterfinal number 2 for the FIA Motorsport Games presented by Fanatec. We watch here as Limskinen continues to hunt behind as we jump back up to the front of the field here. Chris Hardeveldt closing in behind Kadlasic, trying to see if he's able to take a little bit of a run as they go. Not sure if he's necessarily able to carry a little bit more, as there we take a look live on board, and I believe that is Kadlasic that we watch as he tries to get his way around. a little bit of a pressure here from Hartveld, trying to see if he's able to apply a little bit down through 10, 11, and 12. Not looking like he's going to be able to do anything. I'm curious to see, though, here, Jesse, is either of these drivers going to come on into pit lane, the dueling McLarens, and it looks like it's going to be Hartveld the first to blink.
I actually quite like that. If you are the car following, why not come in before your opponent? He's probably wondering why the leader didn't come in that time through on that occasion, but we'll take it nonetheless. And I think that's an absolutely brilliant move. And if Hartveld ends up back in the lead, it might be a winning race move for him and the Netherlands. Several other cars coming in. I am surprised slightly how biased this race has been to pitting at the end. A really differentiating mix in race number 1, but through the first 5 minutes we only had a couple of the cars come in. Might that pay dividends, the early pit stop and the overcut? Now, oh my goodness, that was a huge slide, and that might have been track limits. One of the warnings you're allotted here. Do bear in mind you get 3 warnings, and on the 4th time asking, it is a drive-through penalty assessed by ACC, and I worry he did not get inside the bollards in time.
I don't think he did, and Just Perrick's going to have to be very, very careful about those runnings, as we do have the majority of the field here. Scharf, Schmidt, Limskinen, and Seeley all coming down into pit lane here at this point. Looks like we are waiting for Lee and Kadlasik up at the front of the field. We will keep you up to date when they come into the pits, but they have to come in, I would have to think, within the next lap or so, as there's only about a minute and 10, 15 seconds left to go here in this pit stop window.
There sure is. You got to be careful too. You don't want to extend the pit lane limit here, but here's the 17. What's happened to that Bentley here all by themselves?
Oh, just losing a little bit of control there for the number 17, and unfortunately throwing that car off. But we focus back here on Dennis Gribov as he works his way around here, bringing the car through turns 4 and 5 right now, down into the low-speed corners, trying to catch up in onto the back of Perrick up ahead of him. It looks like Gribov will be in position to transfer, as here comes Kadlasik down into pit lane, and I've got to think Lee's going to be coming in as well.
Yeah, there's no way. We did see a car overextend the pit window earlier, but I don't think anyone here is going to do it. We're going to wait for Lay to come in, and yes, indeed, the only 3 cars that had not completed their stop are indeed in. Nobody will be violating the pit window this time. All that is good. Now the question remains, where does Chris Hartveld come out in all of this? Does Kadlasik beat him out of the pit lane, still in the lane at the moment? And here is Hartveld coming down the pit straight here at Circuit Paul Ricard, coming out, and it is going to be out in front by Martin Kadlasik, and it's not even going to be close. If anything, DJ, he massively extended his lead.
And we've got a penalty being issued here to the number 17, a 5-second penalty for pit lane of entry violation. And that is the Bentley that you see directly up in front of your leader right here. Ooh, a little bit held up there coming through turn 4. That's certainly going to slow down Kadlasik, able to get around it on by, but that's not going to do him any favors, especially if Hartveld is pushing here in the latter stages of the race.
Well, remember a few moments ago when the window opened, the Ukrainian driver, Pasterkov, was one of the first to come into the pit lane. I was wondering if that was a smart move. I think it was for them. They're 13th, but they are a little bit closer to Nicholas Rublar in front of them. Keep in mind, Rublar is continuing to try and get back into this race. They're in 12th place. All they need is a top 10. They are, however, quite a far ways away, 11 seconds out of 11th place, and a further 2.5 thereabouts to the 10th place position. But you know what they say in races like this, folks? Never say never.
Yes, indeed, as here is Håkan Jokelsen farther down in the field than I would have expected. He's going to try to make a move here on Polaine up ahead of him. The South African driver is here is Chris Hartveld, now having to deal with that lap traffic. Looks like that's going to be a little bit easier there for the Dutch driver coming up through turn 10 right now. But he's still lost about 3 seconds up the road. We check back in on the battle between Polaine and Jokelsen right now. Jokelsen closing in behind in that Audi. Here he comes, trying to do what he can. This is going to be a little bit disappointing, I think, for the Icelandic driver, but he's going to have to make do with what he can.
Certainly the case. You got to do with what you have, and Jokelsen has had a bit of an issue here, and will now continue to try and gain spots. You got to get him back one at a time, obviously. But you got to get a move on here. Not a lot of time left. 23 minutes left to go. A little bit less than that now. And, well, you know what they say about endurance racing. The clock's never on your side.
No, it certainly is not, as there comes Jokelson down to the inside, going into turn 8. Looks like that's going to be a pretty easy move completed there for Haken, and indeed he's going to have that move done. The Mercedes trying to fight back a little bit down into turn 9, but I think the Audi is going to be able to hold ahead here. And Jesse, I got to tell you, it really, as opposed to that first race, the pit stops here have seen a fair few of our battles start to fizzle out a little bit. One of the better ones that we have here is Dennis Gribov trying to close in on the back of Jos Perek there. This is for P8 in the field. Dennis Gribov, remember, just kind of lurking in the background of a lot of the battles that we saw earlier on, and doing a very good job here of being able to press his way forward and hold on to that position in the transfer spots.
You're telling me, DJ, Dennis Gribov is on a mission here to gain some more spots, some safety spots, as I would call it. The 54, the American driver, what happened there? In 10th place now, and 2.1 out, and again, that's very much the danger zone. Seeley behind him very much looked like they were on a charge the last time we saw them. 1.5 seconds, that is not safe for the American driver.
No, it certainly is not, and there is Leon Seeley there from Barbados, the number 27 in that McLaren, trying to close in on the back, and he is clawing his way back up into the top 10 here. This is a great drive for Leon Seeley. We've really got to give him credit here.
Yeah, last time we saw him, he was wiping his brow a little bit. Very hard work, heavy lifting. Started in 8th place, was sent back, and of course now trying to get back up to that area. Only needs the top 10 and is very fast. 1/2 second plus a lap quicker than those around him. Absolutely stonking pace by the man from Barbados.
Yeah, really, really good here, and only about 1.7, let's call it about 1.5. Oh, a little bit of a wide run there.
I shouldn't have talked about him. See what happens?
Yep, there it is. Oh, as we've got another off there for Akin Obagule there, having an off there on the number 17. Remember, that is the second time we've seen them have a little bit of a problem. But we focus back here on Leon Seeley. Let's see what that gap is as they cross over the line, Jesse, with about 20.5 minutes left to go in the race. Let's call that gap what it is, 1.4 seconds. That's 3/10 taken out for Seeley, even with that little bobble we saw coming through turn 12.
Yeah, it was a little rough over the curb, wasn't it? But it doesn't matter. When you're fast, you're fast. And Leon Seeley is absolutely flying here. Has a point to prove, was deposed early on into this race, and now maybe racing with a little bit of a chip on the shoulder, and why not? Excellent job. This is the Nigerian driver. Now, we saw them sideways, but this is what happened that led up to that. A little bit of contact here, a little confusion over race space there, and an awkward incident.
Yeah, just a little bit of misjudging of the braking zone there, unfortunately for them. As now Leon Seeley, we focus back in on the Barbados driver, closing in on the back of Tyler Limskinen here. The gap was 1.2 seconds as they exited out of Sector 1. Let's see what it is at the exit of the Mistral Straight. Here they come. Coming down to that timing line. Is Limskinen losing more time? It stays steady at about 1.2 seconds, but Seeley is coming on strong.
Sure is. I think it's going to be an interesting fight when they get there, and I'm curious what Tyler will do when Leon does get there. Certainly you're going to have to drive defensive, but how defensive can you be? Certainly blood in the water for Seeley. Must know that the Porsche's ailing a bit.
Yeah, I think he does, and maybe Limskinen, as we talked about, used up a little bit too much of the stuff here and running into a little bit of a problem. We focus a little bit farther up in the field here. This is Thomas Schmidt under a little bit of an attack from Konstantin Scharf coming up behind him. A battle between the Swiss driver and the German driver here. That gap under a second with under 20 minutes to go here at Circuit Paul Ricard.
Well, what's old is new again, and the Switzerland driver having a fight on their hands. Luckily, they're seasoned by this point and have a good idea of what to expect. Here we have Ukraine and Iceland racing each other. Of course, Jokelson trying to get some of the positions back that they lost. The Lamborghini goes wide, almost as if to let that occur. Now, that was very gentlemanly driving by the Ukrainian.
Very gentlemanly driving indeed, letting Jokelsen on by, but it looks like Paskov here trying to maybe get a little bit of a fight back. Don't think that's going to happen down into turn one, but there's some front to rear contact.
That's going to send the Icelandic driver off the track a little bit. Jokelsen now is going to have to ride the bumps and get back on the track, and that might have been a huge track cut. Now, that's not a big deal yet. It might not be a big deal at the end if they are on their third warning. That's something to consider. Here comes Koketso P-Lane, the South African. Remember, they had a very early penalty in this race. They're trying to recover from that, and now they find themselves battling the Lamborghini.
Yes, they do. That contact there between Pastakov and Jokelsen has really allowed them to come back into this equation right now. Lane coming on, good run there off of Mistral as they bring their way onto the straightaway. It's going to be a side-by-side drag race as they work their way down this very, very long straight. It's Mercedes versus Lamborghini here. Looks like the Lambo has a little bit of the legs. We've seen that play itself out in the first race, that the Lambo looked devilishly quick in a straight line. Now P-Lane going to look down to the inside here, maybe trying to make a little bit of a move. He's going to go for it down in through turn 8, and it looks like that's going to be moved done and dusted for the Mercedes.
Pastakov has shown everybody so much respect thus far in this race. I don't think I've seen that out of anybody else. We're talking about millimeters tolerances for everybody else, and Pastakov is just trying to make sure that there is no further contact, there is no incident, doesn't want to invite trouble here. I really like that kind of driving, knowing that they're not in a transfer spot. They'll go into the LCQ. It's not over for them, but also at the same time, a lot of respect.
A lot of respect. And speaking of that transfer spot here, Leon Seeley closing up to the back of Tyler Limskinen. That gap now down under a second, standing about 0.5 of a second here. The Barbados driver trying to close on in. Also up ahead of him, Gribov there falling into the clutches of Tyler Limskinen. Looks like he's losing a little bit of pace. That gap has come down to 1.2 seconds as we watch Leon Seeley here running a little bit wide there on the exit of turn 6, but still able to carry some good speed, and he's still got 15 minutes left to try to make this pass.
Seeley trying to get by Limskinen here in the late going. A little less than 16 minutes left to go. This is the pass that could see the driver from Barbados go on to the next round of the series and not have to compete in the LCQ. What a journey it's been today for Leon Seeley. Looking down the inside, thinking about making the move. He's there clearly down into seed. What will the American do? Absolutely defenseless. Leon Seeley's through.
He is up into that transfer position, and a great drive for the number 27, and he may not be done yet, as that is Dennis Gribov there up ahead that he may be able to close in on as well, as we have seen the outright pace here from the number 27. Will there be more to show in the final 15 minutes as he brings his way now down through the final couple of corners here, working his way through turn 11, now down into turn 12. Let's see what the gap between himself and Gribov is at the line as they come across. Meanwhile, at the front of the field, by the way, Kadlsik just continuing to extend over Chris Hartevelt here, doing a very, very good job. Tyler Limskinen trying to fight back a little bit here on Leon Seeley, coming across the line. The gap now between Gribov and Seeley is about 1.5 seconds, so it certainly isn't done yet, and there's a little bit of lap traffic that could pose a problem to Gribov.
Very is the case. Gribov now knows that there's a car coming back through the field. Probably will have recognized Seeley in front of them earlier and would have known that they have some speed, and certainly sees the closing distance here. Gonna have to get defensive here maybe a little bit. Oh my goodness, and the Nigerian driver popping up on the track there. Lap traffic always an issue late into a race. Scary moments, but absolutely no contact. Clean through there. Leon Seeley now has bigger prizes up in front of him. 9th place. Does he risk it? I think he might have to, just to make sure the American doesn't catch him or get caught up in some sort of accident. It is very, very touch and go. Hartevelt, by the way, was closing in on our leader of the race, but has since then lost a few tenths and is now losing time to the leader. Incredible stuff. Scharf here from Germany trying to gain ground on Schmidt in front to gain 6th place here, driving the wheels off of that car.
Yeah, certainly is driving the wheels off of that Mercedes-AMG GT3 here as they bring their way through turn 11 right now. Konstantin trying to close that gap. It stands at about 1.4 seconds here between the Swiss driver and the German driver with 13 minutes left to go in the race. You can see them pilot their way down through the final corner on the circuit through turn 13 and now on to the loud pedal here as they go. Let's see what the gap is as they cross over the line. Looks like Schmid was able to pull out a little bit of a gap there, about 1/10 of a second gain through that final sector.
Yep, of course, you know, if you're the lead car in a group like this, DJ, you're trying to figure out where they're quicker than you, what you need to do, because when they eventually catch you, you can't make a plan whenever they've caught you. It's too late. You have to make that plan before then. You have to stick to that plan in hope that it's going to work from a defensive standpoint. But again, keep going back to it. How defensive are you for sixth place, knowing that there's a lot of time between you and everybody else? Maybe at this point, it's just easier to let it go. But if race one's anything to go by, they're not going to do that.
Well, and let's not forget the fact that these drivers are drivers, and if you tell them not to fight, they're just going to keep on fighting. But speaking of a fight, we've got a three-way battle here for ninth place as Gribov has been caught by Seely and Limskinen able to hold on to the back of this train as well. This is going to be a nice little fight here as they work their way through some of the S's on the track and onto the Mistral Straight. Does Seely have the straight line speed here to be able to get a move on the Israeli driver of Gribov? He's a little far back here at this point, but we have seen outright pace from the number 27 of Leon Seely. He may be able to get a good little move going.
Yeah, it's going to be a lap or so, DJ, if I'm honest, but it's still, it works the same way. If you're the driver in front like Gribov, you've got to be trying to figure out where you're getting beat around the racetrack, and certainly now it looks like it's in the corners. The Audi's struggling for grip a little bit, and it's the same thing for Leon Seely, but in reverse. You've got to be able to pick apart your opponent, figure out where you're better, where you could go into battle and beat them. If I'm Seely right now, I like my chances around most of this track, especially the fast corners, because it very clearly looks like I have extra grip. But the problem is, now that we've caught Gribov, the American drivers caught all of them. Tyler's back there, and now this is a three-way fight. It's identical to what we saw last race. One of these drivers isn't going to transfer. All of them don't want to be that one.
Ooh, and a big check up there for Denis Gribov coming down through the corner. That really sent Leon Seely a little bit reeling there as Seely now pokes his way to the outside. Going to tuck back into line here, trying to pull in behind and get a nice little draft coming down the start-finish straightaway. Seely pokes his nose to the inside, maybe running defensive there on Limskinen and trying to be able to protect that inside line. Again, a little bit of a check up there for Seely coming down into turn one. Denis Gribov just focused there on the road ahead of him. As you can see, 10.5 minutes left to go here in quarterfinal number 2 for the FIA Motorsport Games as we continue to watch here. Denis Gribov holding off an attack from Leon Seely. Seely a little bit wider there at the apex, trying to bring as much speed as possible through turn 5 and now through turn 6, and it could be advantage Limskinen here as it looks like he was able to get a little bit of a better run there through the final couple of corners in sector 2.
Limskinen is back in this fight here late in this race, and it's quite interesting too. The nice fight with Seely. Seely obviously prevailing there, but because they're all chained at the hip to each other at this particular point in the race, any of these drivers could have a run. And look at this, the Porsche pulling out to pass down the Mistral Straight. How many times can you say you've ever seen that? Neck and neck, America and Barbados racing for the final transfer spot. Limskinen not going to wait till the last minute of the race and try to get another spot, but it's the inside move from Seely that continues their run and an excellent top 10 spot as they will focus back forward trying to get to Gribov, who's gotten away here a little bit.
Yeah, that gap has expanded out just a little bit between Gribov and Seely. Limskinen there, as you said, just trying to be aggressive, trying to put the Barbados driver offline a little bit if they can. 9 minutes left to go in the race. Up the front of the field, Fanatec continues to lead, and commandingly so. But Leon Seely here in that final transfer position doesn't want to give any time away to Limskinen behind him, and also wants to try to be able to get by Gribov, buy himself a little bit of breathing room. This is your closest battle on the track right now, as it does look like they've separated themselves out a little bit as they cross over the start-finish line, but this has the potential for fireworks, Jesse.
Yeah, it sure does. They're going to be right back together again. It's all about on one corner of the track because of these, they're 3 different cars, aren't they? So one section of the track, they might be a few quarter second maybe apart, and then you get to the the Mistral Straight and the Sector 3 part of the racetrack, and they all come back together again. I think you're going to see the same thing. Limskinen back a little bit from where they were. Seeley trying to offset himself into the tight section here at the end of Sector 1, trying to get a better run. And for my money, he's done it. The driver from Barbados right on the back of Gribov right now. Will we see an attempt here? I think he might be close enough. We'll see if he gains anything down the straight this time.
We'll have to see. We've seen the outright pace from that McLaren, but it doesn't look like he's close enough here at this point to get a move done going down into Scene. He's gonna have to try to do whatever he can if he wants to try to hold this out. A little bit of a defensive line there potentially from Gribov up ahead of him as they work their way now down through into turn 8. Not gonna play itself out. Here they go. Seeley continuing to close in. Limskinen looks like he has lost a little bit of the path right now, and that is unfortunate for him. He's definitely going to lose a little bit of time here as they go, but Seeley all over the back of Dennis Gribov for 9th.
Dennis Gribov from Israel trying to hold on to 9th place. Keep in mind, this position doesn't matter. Oh, and he slid it. He's hit the curb. Look, he slid it. He is out of the transfer spot. The American driver goes through, and Gribov has lost it. A wry, wincing maneuver right there. And oh my goodness, in the millisecond that it took for that incident to correct itself, 2 cars have come through.
Yes, it has, and now the question's going to be is if Dennis Gribov is going to be able to respond to that, be able to fight his way back and take the fight here to Tyler Limskinen. The gap as they crossed the line was about 9/10 of a second. That's plenty of time to make up here in the final 6 minutes and 40 seconds of this race. But for Leon Seeley, he has bought himself some breathing room to the tune of about 1.5 seconds. He is to the good.
That was incredible. I cannot believe we caught that live as it happened. That was a huge grimace from Gribov there, knowing the weight of the moment, knowing what just happened, knowing exactly that just putting one tire wrong caused that entire maneuver. That has released Leon Seeley, the Barbados driver, through up into 9th place. It is 1 spot short of where they started. They will not care. What a brilliant maneuver, DJ. Take us through the replay. Talk us through what happened here.
Yeah, we're going to go to that replay here in a little bit of time, but as of right now, keeping my eye on the gap between Gribov and Limskinen, it was at about 1.1 seconds as they came through the first sector. Let's wait to see. It's down to about 7/10 of a second, so Gribov starting to close in a little bit as they run. Here is that replay. Gribov here coming down through turn 12. You can see him get off a little bit there and then just loses control of the car, maybe got onto the throttle a little bit too early and spun those rear tires, Jesse.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. You can't hit that outside curb there. Of course, the track, you're turning left, but you need to straighten up the car. And when you have a lot of left lock through there and you go over that double-edged curb there, it can very much unsettle the car. You try to stay as inside as possible to straight line that S section, and just a little bit too much speed into that corner was trying to make a little bit of a gap. Cost him mightily now, but it's not over for Gribov, is it really? They still have a chance here. Less than a second off the back of the Porsche, and that is all to play for here in the final 5 minutes. High drama here in quarterfinal number 2.
Very, very much high drama. 5 minutes left to go, as you said, Jesse, as we jump back to take a look again at that replay. Maybe caught a little bit of the curbing there as he slid his way through, but one way or the other, it is done. And Gribov has got to try to recover a little bit for it. So he's got about 9/10 of a second as they crossed over the start-finish line here, crossing over the Sector 1 barrier. It's going to be about 8/10 of a second. Let's see if Gribov's able to get a good run here through the corner. Here is your leader of the race. We haven't really focused on him since the pit stops came through with about 4 minutes left to go. Kadlasic just absolutely doing what he needs to do.
No, without a doubt, the Czech Republic's going to absolutely be loving this. They came in on the front row, but even still, it's a dominating affair. They looked a good race from Hartfeld, but it hasn't come to that. They were able to make the pass, and ever since the pit stop, there's been quite the gap. It's only 4.6 seconds. Chris Hartfeld is keeping them earnest. Of course, you got to run all the laps. You cannot make any mistakes. But for Martin Kadlasic, it has been a fantastic drive here today that could see him and is likely to see him through to the next round.
Yes, it does. As we focus back here on Tyler Limskinen, Gribov looks like he's made a little bit of a mistake on that last lap, dropping a lot of time to the American right now. The gap is about 2 seconds as they cross at the end of the Mistral Straight. So that certainly means that Limskinen's going to be able to breathe a little bit easier here. But as we've said, that Porsche tends to have a lot of tire fall off. He has got to stay on the wheel here in these closing moments. Yeah, it's about 1.5 seconds up to Leon Seely up ahead of him, so we could still see a little bit of a battle on our hands here as they cross over with about 3 minutes left to go in the race.
Unfortunately for Gribov, of course, losing time now. It was 0.7 of a second, it was 0.9 of a second, and on that lap, it's a second or more that they've lost out here to the last transfer position. Just incredible. I can't imagine what's going through the mind of the Israeli driver right now.
He has got to be kicking himself a little bit, that is for sure. But rest assured, we have seen the pace out of that number 49 Audi, and he will get another bite at the apple. He will get the chance to come back in those last chance qualifiers that will take place a little bit later on today. So still plenty of time for him to be able to try to work his way forward a little bit if he wants to. But right now, we focus on Tyler Limskinen, bringing that car onto the Mistral Straight here, trying to see what he is able to get, trying to see if he's going to be able to have anything to go as he brings that car around. 2 minutes left to go, Jesse. Not a lot of time, and our leader, Martin Kadlecik, having to deal with a little bit of traffic here.
Yeah, and this is the thing, too. I talk about all the things you have to do special to make this race, and it looks easy on camera, folks. I assure you of that, but it isn't easy. We're talking about being perfect every single lap. That is what's required to have success with all of these top-tier racing drivers we have, and now, this late to the race, it's almost enough to cause the pulse to race a little bit because you're having to deal with lap traffic right at the end. You have a lead. You've had such a great race, and you start thinking about it. You go, of course, it's gone so well up until this point. I have to navigate traffic perfectly, but has done exactly on this occasion. Race Control has given a warning for car 43 for pushing a competitor, and that is rather unfortunate, but no penalty assessed there.
Yes, indeed. It's about a minute left to go here in the race. I believe Kadlecik will be coming to the line to take the white flag here if my calculations are correct. So we should have 1 to go at the line here for the Czech Republic driver, who has really put on an absolute clinic here at the front of the field. Jesse, we cannot say enough good things about Martin Kadlecik. He has really done a fantastic job holding off the pressure from Hartveld in the middle of the race, being able to make that pass on Hartveld earlier on and just putting down the hammer when he needed to.
Yeah, certainly the case. Of course, he followed Hartveld, didn't he, for the opening stanza of the race. He got a really good opportunity to make that pass and did, and they were still very close at the pit stop interval, but after that, it has been all Kadlecik, and now he's going to get it, the white flag. 1 more lap left to go today in quarterfinal race number 2. Czech Republic leading the race. Martin absolutely flying here.
Absolutely on fire as he brings his way through right now, coming down through this sweeping chicane here for the first couple of corners for the last time. He is going to be in good position here. Is Martin Kadlecik coming down through turn 5, bringing the car through turn 6, and no change of expression there for the Czech Republic driver. I love it.
Yeah, that's what focus looks like. Knows now that you cannot make a mistake at this point. You have to be pinpoint perfect like you have all day. You don't want to overthink it. You got to get through the last couple of corners. You're thinking about only the next corner coming up. You got the muscle memory. You're not trying to change anything now, and it will be victory for him. You know, we haven't talked about a couple of the other cars. Filippo Bokita has had a lonely race in 3rd place, and so has Kuhn in 4th as well. Very lonely races, but again, you'll take that on a day like today.
Yeah, you certainly will, as long as you are up into those transfer positions. Dare I say you are going to be very, very happy with that as we now watch Kadlecik coming down through turn 9 for the final time here today. He is going to bring that car around, still the face of concentration, still the face of knowing exactly what he wants to do. It looks like a good run here for Kadlecik as he brings the car through turn 11. Again, for the final time here, Martin Kadlecik on his way to victory in quarterfinals quarterfinal race number 2. What is he going to be able to do in the semifinals? We will have to wait to find out, because Martin Kadlasic right now comes across the line to take victory here at Paul Ricard.
Coming to the line there and crossing it there, absolutely no reaction. And Chris Harteveld comes across the line here, an excellently ran race in second place. Would have thought that he was going to be in the fight for the win, but just didn't work out that way today. Filippo Bokita from Australia in third place. Absolutely ecstatic that they got to move on without any fuss whatsoever. Matthias Kuhn from Belgium as well coming to the line in fourth place. Another quiet race, but an excellent one.
Yeah, and speaking of drivers that we didn't get to focus on, Alexander Lee here coming across the line as well. Here is one driver that we spent a lot of time focusing on, Thomas Schmid, as he was able to hold off and move his way up into the right positions there. Great stuff for him. He'll be very, very pleased to cross over in 6th to take that transfer position. Konstantin Scharf going to come across the line there in P7, as here is Jos Perik, involved in the wars out there today, but the Estonian is going to be able to come across the line and bring it on in easy.
Well, you can say that about everybody crossing the line here. Perik absolutely deserved, Seeley absolutely deserved, Barbados is through, and also, who would have thought it, Limsnicken is going to come across the line for the United States, and that will be the final transfer spot, and there would have been a point of that race where I didn't think that was even possible.
Neither did I, but Tyler putting on the moves when he needed to. Absolutely remarkable stuff there from him, Jesse, as we are going to be done here for quarterfinal number 2, but do not worry, folks, we have got one more action-packed hour-long race to bring to you here, and that'll be coming your way in about just 15 minutes time, so stick on with us, and we will be back in a short while.